Hello, everyone, and welcome you all to another chapter of the JavaScript beginners tutorial. So now we are on our chapter number 13, where I'll be showing you guys about loops in JavaScript. Okay, so we'll be learning about how the loops work and what are the different kind of loops available inside JavaScript that we can use to build our website. So let's not waste time and let's get started. So over here on my screen, as you guys can see, now I'm here at the same JavaScript file in which I do have showed you guys about the conditional statements. Okay. So over here, let me just comment this out and let me name this one as loops, as we're gonna learn about loops over here into this particular chapter. So now, to understand about loop, first we need to understand that in our last classes, we do have learned that what an array is and how you will be able to create up an array. So before starting to understand about loops, we need to understand that there are different kind of loops. So let's start with the for loop at first. Okay. So we're gonna start with for loop, and you already know that if you do want to create a variable, or let's say if you want to create an array, which is a variable as well, I will just type var, and now let's name this one as array. Okay, so I will just type array right over here. Let's put equals to, otherwise instead of writing array, let's type array 1 and let's put equals to sign. And to do that, let's come here and let's open up my square bracket over here. Okay, so once I have opened up the square bracket, let's come here and let's try to get different kind of values. Okay, so let me just go with 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and let me just go on with 17. Okay, and over here you already know that if I don't use the semicolon as well, it will work, but it's good practice that if we use the semicolon over here. So let's click on enter, and as you guys can see that over here now I do have created this array 1 over here. So now if I just come here and if I just type console.log, and after writing console.log, if I want to get access to this array 1, like if I want to see all the elements of array 1, so I will just click on the array 1 right over here. And now let's put out the semicolon. Let's just go to this HTML file. Let's right click. Let's open this up in live server. Right click. Let's go to the inspect option. Here you guys can see that I do have array. And if I just drop this one down, or let's say I will just come over here. Let's go to my JS file and Control S to save it. Let's come here, and here now you guys can see that I do have all the things available in my array. Okay, so here you guys can see totally I do have 7 components over here, or 7 elements, and here you guys can see each one of these individual options over here. So now let's say from here, if you want to get access to each of the elements inside individually, what are you gonna do? Okay, so there are some easy ways to get access to that. So if I want to do that particular thing right over here, let's click on enter, and here I'll be showing you guys the usage of the for loop. Okay, so over here also you guys can just come here, and let's say if you just try to put out the square bracket, or let's put out their index number. Okay, so we do have learned about index numbering as well. Control S. Let's come over here, and this is how you guys can individually get access Okay. But if you don't want to do, let's say, if I want to come here, I need to come here, put out the square bracket. Then again, I have to write their index number individual. So instead of doing that, if I want to use loop over here, so now let me just start with the for loop. So first I will just type for, let's give it up a space. And now in this particular for loop, I'm going to make out a variable. Okay. So for that, I will just type var, as you guys already know, and I can just name my var anything. Let's go with a, and now let's give it up a space. Let's put equal to, and now I will put the value or the value of my var over here as 0. Okay, so I will just put the value of a as 0, and I will just put out the semicolon, and let's come here, and now I will put that a should be less than. Okay, so here now I have put out the variable, and here now I'm putting out the condition what I want my loop to follow. Okay, so I'm telling that, well, here the value of a is 0, and condition for me over here is that, let's come here, let's give it up a space. You guys, if you guys don't use the space as well, it's fine, because I'm just trying to make it look better, that you guys can see it and understand it in a better way. Okay, so a is less than a r r a y 1. Okay, so I'm just putting out the variable which I do have over here on top, and now I will just click on dot, and here you guys can see, you guys can use the length. Okay, so my condition over here is a is less than ra1 dot length. Okay, so you guys know that what do you mean by length, which is like the index numbering. Okay, so it will just count the total number. So if you just count the total number here, you guys will be able to see that the index numbering starts from 0. So if you just come over here, let me just give it out a space. Let me comment this one out. The index number is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, as you do have 7 elements over here, and over here 0 is taking out the first number. So in that case, I'm taking that, well, over here, now you need to make sure that you are going to print a every time it is less than the length of the arrow 1. Okay, so this is the conditions which I have explained. Let me put out a semicolon over here, and also I'm telling that each time you finish this condition, let me take a, and I'm going to put a double plus. Okay, so double plus over here basically means that you are just adding 1. Okay, so let's come here, let's put out a colon. So let me just comment this one out as well. So a plus plus is equal to a plus 1. Okay, so that's the thing, don't get confused over here. Well, so now as you guys can see, I will have this particular command over here. Now I will just click on enter, or let's go back, let's come here, otherwise let's click on enter. Let me just delete this one out. And over here, as this is a for loop and I do have too many conditions over here, so let me just come here and let me just put this thing inside of a parenthesis. Okay, so let me just come here, let me just put everything inside this particular parenthesis, and now let me just open up my curly bracket. Let's click on enter, and here you guys can see now this one over here is basically indented. So my comment is basically going to be console.log. Let's open parenthesis. And now over here, I am going to type array1, okay, which is the name of the var1 over here. And let's open up the square bracket. And I'm going to name the variable which I do have created right over here. Okay, so this var, let's come here. And let me just put the var also inside. Okay, so let me just give this one up a space. Let's put up a space over here as well. So as you guys can see, now my comment is var a is equal to 0, and if the number of a is less than the array length, which is 6, then it will just add every time once it has passed, and it will just print it. Okay, and once it comes over here, it prints the number. Again, it will come to this for loop, and till the time it will keep on printing that it doesn't get false. Okay, because the time will come where it will see, well, the value of a is 7 right now. So 7 is not less than 7, but if I put equal to or less than or equal to, then it will print, but not now. Okay, so it will basically stop there and it will show me my result. So let me just see this one over here in my website. So as you guys can see here, it's just printing each and every of these elements individually. So, well, this was about the for loop. And the next thing, what we're gonna learn over here is basically about the for each loop. Okay. So here, the same thing which you have did inside the for loop, if you want to do it easily or like within a few sentences, let me come over here and let me just comment this one out first. Let's come down, let's click on enter over here again. So for that, what you guys can do is first, you guys can just type the name of the variable, which is array1. And after that, you guys can just type for each. Okay, so over here you guys can see that you guys can mention for each. Let's open parenthesis, and over here you guys can just mention a particular function inside. Okay, and again create up a parenthesis, and over here you guys can just name this one up anything you want. Let's say I will just call this particular function as numbers. Okay, so if I just call this one numbers, here you guys can see inside the first parenthesis, I do have call for a function, and the function is known as numbers. Okay, so let's come here. Let's open up the square bracket. Let's click on enter. And here now inside, I can say that console dot log numbers. Okay, so here you guys can see. Now I will just put numbers over here. So now let's come back down over here and let's me close down my parenthesis over here. And now if I just click on Control S again, and over here if I come, you guys can see that I will have the same outcome over here back as well. Okay, so if I just clear up my console, let's go to my VS Code, Control S, and let's come here. You guys can see getting the same answer right over here with array. Okay, so if you want to individually get access to the numbers of your array or the elements inside the array, you guys can use the for loop. Otherwise, you guys can use the for each loop as well, where it will just end your particular thing with very small equation. Whereas in for loop, you guys need to put out the value of the var. Here, you need to put out the conditions. Then you need to put that how much do you want to add to it, and make sure that after that you put the console.log, name your variable, and also what you want to print. Okay, but here in for each loop, you just need to mention the function and the function will work accordingly. Okay, so now we're gonna learn about while loop. So for working with the while loop, let's come here and let me just comment out my for each loop as well. Okay, so over here, while using the while loop, here we need to type out the variable. But how you used to do, like we just used to type var for variable, right? But over here, what we guys can do is we guys can just type let. Okay, so we guys can just use let over here, and after typing let's click on W, or let's make a variable, and I will just put W is equal to 0. Okay, and now let me put out the semicolon over here. Let's click on enter, and here now I have first defined W is equal to 0. Okay, so this is the value of W, and now I'm gonna use my while loop over here. So for that, now let's type while. Okay, and after typing while, let's open parenthesis over here, and first I am going to put out the condition. Okay, like what condition I do want it to follow. Let's say W is going to be less than the length of the array is 1. Okay, so over here you guys can see I do have the array 1. Okay, so my condition over here is that W should be equals to array dot 1. Okay, so once this is basically done, let's come over here, let's open up the curly bracket, let's click on enter, and now let's type console dot log ARR, and let's open up the square bracket, and I will just mention the name of this variable which I have created is W. Okay, so if you just take out a look what all have I mentioned first and how the while loop will basically work. Okay, so first thing the while loop is going to do is they'll come right over here. Otherwise, if you do want to copy this one and bring this one down, Control X, and let's come here, let's click on enter, Control V. Okay, so now you guys will understand it in a better way. Well, so here you guys first will see that, well, let W equals to 0. So here this is the value of the variable, and once you come inside the while loop will see, well, the condition over here is if W is less than array1, then only I can move forward and go to console.log and basically print. Okay, and once they see that, well, this particular statement over here is basically true, well, I can come here and I can just print this thing up. But now let's come down and let's put 1 to W. Okay, like you want to plus 1 to W. So what you can do is W, and after that you guys can just put plus plus, and now let's close this down with colon as well. And once it comes to this third line of the while loop, it will see that, well, the first value of W was 0. So once it comes down after printing, it sees, well, they're telling me to plus 1 to it. Okay, so we have already seen that the total length over here of this particular while loop is basically 6. Okay, so over here it will just add 1, and next time when it will come over here into the while loop, its value will be 1, and it will check if the statement is true or not with the condition, then it will print again, then it will plus 1 to it. So one time it will come that the value of W will become 7, and over here, now let's check this one out inside my console as well. Okay, so if I just put 7 less than 7, and if I click on enter, here you guys can see that it shows me this is a false statement. Well, once the statement is false, it won't print out again. Okay, so it will just stop printing right over here, and that's how a while loop basically works. Okay, so over here if I just click on Control S, and now if I just go to my console, here you guys can see here it's showing me that unexpected identifier, which is W. Okay, so let's come over here again. So over here, where's the problem with my statement? Well, here you guys can see inside console.log, I just made this problem. So it's going to be ARRAY1, which is array 1. So Control S again. Let's come here. Let's clear out this. Let's go to this particular option from here, Control S to save it. Or totally, let's come here. Let's just change this to J. Well, let's come here. Let's name this one as J. And also over here, I will just name this one as J. Okay. So Control S to save it. And again, over here, it's basically showing me this particular error. So if I just come here and if I just refresh this page, or let me just close this thing down, Control S to save it, and let me check that did I go over here, like did I go on top and did I just close everything down, like did I comment these things out? Well, so I will come here, Control S to save it, and here now again, let's go to my HTML file, let's right click and let's open this with my live server. Let's go to the inspect option, and here now you guys will be able to see the changes. Control S to save it. Control S. Let's come over here, and inside this particular console, now you guys will be able to see all these things. Okay, so if I just come here, Control S. So let's come over here, let's right click, and you guys can just format this particular document which is there, Control S again. And if you just come over here inside your console, you guys can see it's printing you each and every element inside the array 1. Okay, so this is about the while loop right over here. And also I will be showing you guys about the do while loop. Okay, so there is no much difference between the do while loop and the while loop. So first you do have to type do. Let's open up the curly bracket, and inside it you guys can type the same thing, which is this console dot log this array 1, this particular statement. Control C, and let's put Control V to paste it, and after that let's click on enter, and over here you guys can just type J plus plus, okay, which means that it will just add one every time it loops. Okay, and after that, once this is done, let's come here, and inside this now let's type while. Okay, so over here now I will just type while, and now again what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna come here, I'm going to take out this condition inside the while loop. So let's click on Control V, and now let's close this down with a colon. And for that, let's come here and let me just comment all of these things out, and let's comment this out as well. And here now you guys will be able to see that console.log array1 equals to J. Okay, otherwise array1. And now let's come over here and let's try to run this one down. Okay, so if you just come over here, you guys can see I am just getting out the same answer which I had got uh, later as well. Okay, but now one thing you guys will change. Let's say if I just come here and if I just change the value of J to, let's say, 12. Okay, but over here the length of array 1 is basically 6, so there will be an error. But here if you're using the do while loop, it won't show you an error, instead it will show you undefined. But without looking at the condition over here, it will just run out first. Okay, it will just run once. Okay, like if you do want to run any comment once, you guys can use this do while loop. So Control S, so let's come over here. Here you guys can see it's showing me as undefined instead of showing me any kind of error. So yeah, I hope you guys do have understood about loops. So we do have understood about the for loop, we do have understood about the for each. We do have then understood about the while loop. And lastly, I do have told you guys about the do while. So now let's try to understand about break and continue statements. Okay, what are those over here into this chapter? So to understand better about the for loop and about the break statement and the continue statement, let me just come here and let me just comment all of these things out first. Let me just comment this thing out as well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take out this var, Control X, and let's bring it down over here. And over here now, let's click on Control V, and I'm going to use the for loop, which we do have learned in our last classes. Okay, so let's bring this for loop right over here, which I have over here in top. Control C to paste it, and Control V to paste. Okay, like to copy is Control C and Control V to basically paste it. Let's come here and let's comment in this particular for loop. So over here, you guys can basically see over here that, well, my command over here was till the time var is less than the length of the array1 variable, it will keep on printing. So let me just come over here. Let me just delete this particular line which I had. And let's come here and now let's add up a new line. Let's say if I just add if over here, and if I just give out another condition over here, let's say if a, which is this variable over here, a is equal to, so if I do want to compare anything, I need to use the double equal to, and let's say if I tell 2, or let's come here, if double equals to is equal to 3, then I want to break my particular statement. Okay, so if I do want to break this particular statement, let's open out the curly bracket, let's click on enter, and over here now I am going to type break. Okay, so if I just type break, let's put out the semicolon, and now if I just run this particular code, okay, let's click on Control S. Let's come here, and here you guys can see it's just printing out the index number 0, 1, and 2. Because over here, I do have mentioned that, well, when the value of a is equal to 3, so I'm comparing it with what? So over here, basically, I am comparing it with the number of the length of the array1 variable. Okay, so over here, now I have mentioned if the value of a is becoming a3. Okay, if the value is becoming a3, you need to break thing out. So it will just keep printing till the number 2, and once this particular if statement is becoming true, it will just break and it will come out of the loop eventually. Okay, so it won't print anything after that, and it will just go out to the next function or the next coding, and it will just come out of that loop quite like that using the break statement. Okay, so this was about the break statement, and now let's try to understand about the continue statement. Okay, so over here you guys can see, now if I just type continue, okay, so here you guys can see, if I just type the continue statement, here you guys can see what is there at the number of index number in the array1. So here you guys can see 0, 1, 2, and 3. So 14 is basically the index number 3, which I have mentioned over here. So here it will just keep this number 14, and instead of this, it will just print everything else present in the variable right over here. So Control S, and if you just come here, you guys can see instead of 14, it is just printing each and everything right over here because the number 14 was present inside the 3 number index. Okay, so over here you guys can just check match the index number, and that is how you guys can use the continue and the break statement inside your loops. So yeah, I hope this class was clear. So I hope to see you all in the next chapter. Till then, take care and goodbye everyone.